You're listening to the My Simplified Life podcast, and this is episode number 312. Welcome to the My Simplified Life podcast, a place where you will learn that your past and even your present don't define your future. Regardless of what stage of life you're in, I want you to feel inspired and encouraged to pursue your dreams, simplify your life, and start taking action. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac, author of How to Get On Podcasts, the podcast matchmaker, and CEO and founder of the MLG Collective. I'm excited to share the stories and life lessons of changemakers and authors with you while taking you on my own journey. This is My Simplified Life.
Hi,
Hey.
Michelle.
Hi, Steph. How are you?
I am doing all right. My voice is still struggling, but I have one today. I didn't have one for the last few days, so we're calling it a win.
It's good that you have it, and it's just your sexy, deep voice.
This is who I am now. Yeah, just gonna sound like a smoker, like a sultry night lounge.
Yes, not like a smoker, because that reminds me of those commercials, where I'm like, see, kids, you shouldn't smoke.
No, don't do it.
You can't talk. Yeah.
How are you? I feel like it's been 17 years since we talked last.
Well, you've gone on a trip since we talked last.
I did, yes.
I have just been at home solo parenting.
Well, how's that going?
Oh, it's not good. But, we're halfway through it today. We counted the nights. So we're halfway through. Yeah.
Oh, yay. Oh,
and you know what? It's not even the juggling of where we have to go, who needs to be dropped off at the same time,
right?
Different parts of town. It's that they miss him. And it's so funny because I was just on the phone with Ted and he was like, but if I was there, like, I still wouldn't see him when they're at school. Like,
right.
There's certain things you still wouldn't be there, but it's just, I think the thought of him is what they miss. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. Oh, that's so sweet. Oh.
So sweet. I told them as there were tears in the car this morning, I'm like, but I'm still here.
Yeah.
And they looked at me and I went, oh, not the same? No.
Oh, well, that's hard
to
hear.
I feel wonderful for that. I hope you continue to own your day and slay it.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Yeah. Okay. So did they act like that when you were in LA for the day?
There were tears.
Okay.
There were tears.
Well, at least it's for both, Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet kids.
Good stuff. I want to hear about your trip.
It was so fun. It was really good. I went to Austin for 2 book events and brought a couple of my dear friends with me who've been, we were friends first, but then I started a book club like 8 years ago, and then they have been with me ever since. And so we're reading buddies. And so they came with me, which was fun. And the first night was an event between Amy Griffin and Jenna Bush Hager. They were in conversation for Amy Griffin's book, The Tell, which is a phenomenal memoir. It's so powerful. It does deal with her sexual assault as a child and kind of the repressed memories and then coming to terms with that and telling your story, telling what happened. So it is a heavier memoir, but really beautifully written. She narrates it in her voice and it just really comes to life. And it ended up being the Oprah's book club pick. I think Oprah doesn't do exact months, she'll kind of just do a certain amount of weeks. So I believe it was the pick before this one. And I know in March they announced it, but I don't know how long that lasted. But anyway, it was incredible. And I had missed all of Amy's tours originally because I got the COVID that is still torturing my vocal cords. She had this all star powered tour. It was quite incredible looking at it, but she has she's a very influential woman. But the thing that's amazing about her is she's so encouraging and supporting. You can't meet her and not love her. And she just is this so kind to everyone. Anyway, and I was so bummed to miss her tour events. And then Jenna Bush Hager also went on a tour for her most recent book or children's book that she wrote with Barbara, which is so cute. And I missed those tours because of the COVID. And so the fact that they were both in conversation, obviously only talking about the towel, but it was so fun to get to go and see that. And it was even more special because Amy's book takes place, like she's from Amarillo, which Texas, which is near and dear to
Makes
my
me
heart.
want to sing the song.
Yeah.
Amarillo by morning.
Yeah. I was born in Lubbock, Texas, so 2 hours
Ah,
away, but
I've been there.
yes, but we drove through Amarillo every single time because we moved when I was 2 to Colorado, but we would continue to go back multiple times a year to see my grandma and aunt. So Amarillo, I know Amarillo well. Anyway, she grew up there. And so it was cool seeing these two Texas women and then Amy being back in Texas. And there were a lot of really instrumental people in her life that are mentioned in the book, like dear friends or coaches or her family, that were all there because it was the Texas event. So that was really special to get to be there for that. And I've never been to Austin before. So that was so fun. And then the next night was this really fun bookworm bash for an author, Allie Rosen. She is known for her cookbooks, but she started writing fiction like a few years ago. I don't know exactly how many years ago, but she has several out. And they're just like the sweetest, like rom-com / women fiction. I don't like the term women's fiction. Like, why do we have to have a qualifier? But I don't know how else to like phrase that.
What is men's fiction?
Yes. So, anyway, but she writes like it just, I love her books. And so she had the best idea. She contacted Sheridan at the beginning of her book tours, or actually maybe it was Marriott first, but then she ended up working with Sheridan and Sheridan's really starting to see like, oh, investing in the book world is like a good idea because they did partnerships with Reese's Book Club. They're like, these bookworms love to travel. They love to like go places and will spend money on their books. I think she said they know bookworms have expendable, money. And I was like, do we though? Or do we just make unwise choices, choices that
Is
to us,
Bookworms a club, or are
no,
you just
just
referring to
book
bookworms in
people
general?
in general.
Okay.
Yeah. Book
Okay.
people in general. Thank
It's
you
really
for
people who
clarifying that.
don't get out.
Yes. Yeah.
And this is the opportunity to get
We
out of
go.
the
We're
house.
like, well, we'll
Yeah.
go if there's other people like us there reading the books we love. And nothing quite beats the romance book community and the fantasy book community. I mean, they are hardcore. And anyway, so she set up all these fun books and they were like all these tables. So she did several different events in different Sheridans. One was supposed to be in Denver. One was in Denver. I was supposed to be with her there. She asked a variety of fellow like local authors and then other like bookish influencer people to be at each event. And so I was supposed to be at the Denver one, but then spoiler alert, I guess we can all guess what happened. The COVID happened. These are all events that I missed because of COVID.
You love the COVID.
The
Or the
COVID.
COVID loves you.
Oh my gosh. And so I am vaccinated. I don't know. It's just so I missed that. And so I contacted her and I said, can I join you in Austin? Because I really want to support you and celebrate this. And she was like, yes. And it just worked out that both of those events were back to back, like each night. And so this one was so fun. Allie Hazelwood was there. I got to meet her. She is so fun. And, a couple other just like amazing authors. Emily Harding, she has a book releasing in July. And I'm just really, it was just so fun. I had the best time. So
Did you get to meet Amy and Jenna?
I
I know
went
you've
back.
met Jenna,
I've
but
met both of them. Amy, I met at the Hello Sunshine event last October. And we talk online sometimes. Like we're not like best friends or anything, but she's been very encouraging and supportive of what I do. And so after the thing was over, I just asked like, hey, can I go back and give Amy a hug? So then I did, and I got to give her a big hug. And then Jenna was right there. And so that was really fun. I got to give her a couple big hugs. And so it was kind of like a reunion. I didn't take any pictures, but it was just like a quick, like, hey, like, good to see you both. I had the COVID and now I'm here.
so you might have given them the COVID.
No. Like
Oh.
I told them that that's why I missed their events
Okay.
before.
I'm like, no, don't give them all the COVID.
No. I would not be there if I had. That's why I missed
But
the event.
because you get it and you don't know you have it at first.
Yes.
And then that's how
it
it's
got
all spreading.
really horrible. And thankfully I didn't go anywhere. I ended up just canceling all my trips for like a month straight, and then, no longer testing positive or contagious. My vocal cords are damaged. I definitely have
Long
the
haul.
long COVID now.
Yeah.
And my vocal cords, it's like they go in and out. I'll be okay and then not okay. And so anyway, it was a really wonderful trip. I got to see and celebrate a lot of wonderful book people and be on a fun panel. And it was so fun. I
Yeah.
love being around book people. I just love it. They're the
Yeah.
best.
We get each other.
Yeah, exactly. So
So
it's
you
fun.
said something about Amy, and I feel like this is something we should talk about, because she was somewhat big before, and I forget. I've stalked her because I haven't read the book yet. It's on my Kindle app.
Yeah.
But she was big before, and
Mhm.
it makes me wonder, do you have to be big and influential in order to have a successful book launch, especially a memoir? Because she had all of these contacts to
Mhm.
begin with. That's how I don't know if people know, but when you go in conversation for book launches and whatnot, somebody has to know that person to invite
Mhm.
them to be the conversation partner.
Yeah.
So when I've been a conversation partner, it's because either the publisher knew me or the publicist or the
Mhm.
author.
Yep.
And so she knew all of these people already.
Mhm.
And that's how she's big. That's
Well,
how
yeah.
the book sells. So what about all these people who have really good stories that might actually be very similar, but they don't have already the built-in audience?
Well, I think that, I agree. There's no denying that both things can be true. Amy's book is phenomenal and will, I believe, change a lot of lives. Really well written. And I'm not just saying that because she's my friend or a big deal or anything like that. It's a really, really wonderful memoir. In fact, my side note, but my friend Heidi, who came with me, she didn't really realize who we were going to see because it was kind of like thrown together. Like she was like, okay, I wasn't sure if she was going to make it. So she came and she had just finished The Tell just because she wanted to read it. And she was just raving about it. And I said, that's who we're going to see tonight. Like we're going to go hear her talk about The Tell. And she was like, wow, she loved it. She thought it was so moving. So it is a very, very powerful memoir. But there is no question that the success of her book launch is not also partially due to connections, because that is how this world works. And every once in a while, you've got these lesser known authors that get brought to the attention of Oprah, Reese, Jenna. If you end up on their list, you're almost guaranteed a number one New York Times bestselling book, which just sets you up for life, essentially, just like really sets you up. But to get there, it is an extremely difficult process. And especially for a bunch of authors who do write these incredible stories or do have a lot of wonderful things to say. And at the end of the day, I think the book world is very much a who do you know kind of a situation. But I think that's where it's important that people like, you and I come in, and while not nearly as influential as Oprah, obviously,
What? Come on.
to celebrate and support these authors that aren't necessarily getting, have the connections. But it's a very tricky world. I actually just read, Romantic Friction. It came out on Tuesday by
Okay.
Lori Gold. And it's like a romance slash like women's fiction again, but just kind of like this hilarious caper takes place at this romance book convention. But ultimately the whole theme is about the publishing world, what that looks like, how those connections are made, how people end up on the list, and then also the debate between AI and AI's role in the whole situation. So she had a lot of really important themes running through this like hilarious, fast-paced book. So I loved it. But it really did bring to light a lot of facts about the publishing world that I think people don't know unless you're in it. And
Mhm.
even some I didn't know because I have never tried to publish a book. And that is, in terms of you can manipulate numbers. Like to get up on the New York Times bestselling list, it's all about how many books you have in production at that time. So even if you are a Read with Jenna book pick, if your publisher didn't order the qualified amount of books out in the world before the list hits, you don't qualify. So it's really tricky.
Interesting.
And so getting pre-buzz is huge, pre-order buzz, because that's what lets publishers know how many books to order. Obviously they have gut instincts about certain things, like this is going to be big, this is going to be big, but it's inevitable that the bigger names are going to validate more books being ordered, because it's like, oh, everyone's going to want to read this book, or everyone's going to want to go to their events. And what's hard about that is at the end of the day, it is a marketing game. At the end of the day, it's a marketing game. And so it's the written word and the power of what people write. The ones that make it to the top are not always the most worthy. And there are a lot of really, really worthy ones that don't. And I mean, it's kind of like acting or anything else, right? It's being at the right place at the right time. Shonda Rhimes said the reason Bridgerton even got made was because she was like stuck in a hotel room in Austin or somewhere. The weather was really bad. Her flight was delayed, and she just picked up a Bridgerton book and started reading it. And then she's like, oh, I can make a show out of this. And then she did, so it's totally right place, right time. And whether you call it fate or just good luck or, God's divine plan, however you want to see that, at the end of the day, it is about who sees your book. And I think that's why you got me going on another tangent, Michelle, another TED Talk. But I think that's why it's so important. I'm going to go back to romantic fiction, because there was a part in the book where this older author said, she was trying to give advice to these younger authors or these new, up and comers. And just that, like, back in the day, people were far more, especially women in publishing, were far more encouraging of each other. And now it's like the best of this list or the best of this list or this promotion or this promotion. And there's this competitive drive. And so while authors do support each other and, people in the industry do try to encourage one another, there's always that feeling of like, but why not me? Or why not, which is natural.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a sense of competition that if, and another thing she brought up is that publishers or editors, they only take on a certain number of clients. So if you're in, someone else is out. And that is, it's really hard. Like, it's somewhat cutthroat. And, which is why I think that the self-publishing industry has been a really good thing in a lot of ways, because it allows people to get their work out there. But then you're stuck with how do I get my name out there? How do I promote things more? And it's hard. It's very, very hard.
It's very hard. It becomes more than a full-time job.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredibly, incredibly difficult. And for me personally, my little piece of the pie, pun intended, is, making these pies to stop your scroll. This pie art that says, hey, stop scrolling, look at this book, and I've had numerous people say, I read this book because of your pie. And I was like, well, that's why I did it. So that's how I try to help authors, is by working with them, creating something that is not just going to be a beautiful picture on Instagram. It's going to be something that, like, people stop and see.
Right.
But even me, I'm having to rework and go to bed every night thinking, how could I do this better? Or how could I change what I'm doing to help promote these authors better? Because just because it worked for several years doesn't mean it's going to keep working, or, Instagram's changing, everything's changing. And, it's constantly it's a hard thing to keep up with. And I'm just one voice, and so, it is, it's challenging. It's for sure
I think
challenging.
that's something that we both are striving to do
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
wanting to do, because even though this is what our paying jobs are.
Yes, I'm so sorry.
There's a reason why we've chosen to work
Mhm.
with authors.
Yes.
I remember I was sitting on a beach, um, very blissfully, and I turned to my friend Krista and I said, "You know what? I want to work with authors.
Mhm.
I love working with business owners. I love this, but I really want to focus on authors and books and figuring out a way that I get literally paid to read books. This is what I want to do."
Right.
And here we are 3 years later. That's literally what I get paid to do. I get paid to read books.
Mhm.
Um, and that's amazing. That's a blessing. That I love it. But
Mhm.
there's so many books. And
There's
I
so
want
many books.
to, I feel so bad, but it's funny because I have a love for the books that I'm reading, but I keep getting more books. And then there's the pressure of, okay, I have to read this book. What do I read next? When can I read it?
Mhm.
And then it's, priority is client books
Mhm.
because I have to read them so we can work on them. And
Mhm.
then it's, okay, what am I going to read for the podcast? And have I already committed to a book and said yes? Or has it just been unsolicited and sent to me? Or have
Right.
I requested it on NetGalley? And now
Right.
when does it come out?
Yeah.
Do I have time to read all of these books?
Yeah.
I literally have a document on when pub dates are and how do I have the book? And is it physical? Is it NetGalley? Where is it? You know, all of these things and prioritizing, okay, well, if two books come out on the same day, who's going to get that podcast episode and who gets
Right.
the Thursday slot?
Mhm.
It becomes something that's so much pressure.
Mhm.
And I don't want it to be either, though.
Right. And that's what's so hard.
Yeah.
And what's also hard about it is if you're too oversaturated, which I can tend to be because I just want to take on all these clients and not only, excuse me, for the monetary purposes, because this does really help my family. Like it helps it's my income. Um, because I want to be able to be like, oh, your book should be out there. I hear it, I read it, I'm like, oh, this should be out there. And but then if you're too oversaturated with newer clients or new smaller books or those kind of things, then your feed loses power. And so then you've got to like start rolling in more big names. And it's just this constant game. And so, you end up, what that ends up looking like is less spots for the lesser known authors so that the spots you do give them have a good oomph to them. And that stinks. And I'm not good at following those rules just because I'm like, oh, yeah, I want to promote your book, or oh, I want to promote your book. And I mean, I have a list a mile long of all the pies I want to make, mile long. I mean, it's for years just building up because I can't make more than one a day. They take like 6 hours. And
Oh, yeah.
then, you know, so it's like, who gets the pie that day? Or like you were saying, who gets the podcast episode on pub day, or who gets, so it's so hard. It is a hard thing. And I feel horrible for the authors that never get their names out there, right? Like um, I did this poll of local Colorado authors. I just was curious to see who's here on Threads. And so many people responded, and I knew next to none of them. And I'm like, oh, to be an author in this world, like it just made my heart sad. Not that they're writing, because that's phenomenal and good, but that there are so many voices out there that struggle to be heard. And then we especially see that in terms of just racial bias or gender bias, or just different things. At the end of the day, it's a numbers game. And then that begs the question, something I've been thinking about a lot. If your book isn't seen by very many people, and obviously putting aside the fact that you have a dream of becoming a best-selling author, like you have a dream of living off your book sales, which is very hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put that aside and you're like, I just want to write this book and put it into the world and see what happens. And not that many people read it. Does it mean you shouldn't have written it? Does it mean it was a waste of time? If it only affects 3 people, but it affects them in a big, powerful way, was that worth it? And I think yes. I think a resounding yes, because um literature changes lives. And we, oh my gosh, there's a cat, I'm so sorry, living in the shutter by my window, and it just jumped down like a monkey onto the ivory. Heart attack. Okay, so sorry about that. And I lost my train of thought, so it's gone now.
Is it worth writing a book,
Yes,
even if it's just 3 people that it affects?
right. And so because business wise, numbers wise, everything is based on, did it bring in enough? Is it seen by enough? As an influencer, are your posts trending well? How are your views? How are your rates? Is it worth it to invest in working with you? Is it worth it to, you know, and it can get exhausting, and it can get very almost debilitating, because it's like when you're at the mercy of things like algorithm and number games and whatever Mark Zuckerberg's in the mood for that day, or whatever it is, it can make you feel like what you did didn't matter, but it does matter. Your work does matter, even if it's only seen by a few people.
I've always said that with the podcast
Sorry.
and with any client, if you can reach one person, then it's worth it, because
Absolutely.
to be able to live your life in this world and change the life of another person, done. You're done.
Agreed.
I
100%.
also think, though, that when you're writing a book, if you're writing it to reach someone, that's one thing. But I
Mhm.
think that as an author, you should be writing it because it's something you want to write. And so if that's what you're doing, then it does not matter if you reach 1,000,000 people or
Mhm.
3 people,
Mhm.
because if it's done something for you,
Yeah,
then it's also worthwhile, because we deserve
absolutely.
to change our own lives, because we shouldn't
Absolutely.
depend on anyone else to do it for us.
Mhm.
So if writing a book and getting that out
Mhm.
is what you want to do,
Mhm.
then I think it's worth it. And
Absolutely.
it doesn't mean that you have to go invest in a publicist, invest in huge publishing, printing it.
Mm-mm.
Ebooks are all the rage. Um,
Mhm.
there's certain things that you can do. And I know that not everybody can afford it. Like, that's a luxury. I think to be able, honestly, to self-publish and to pay to have something printed, to pay for a marketing budget and a PR budget, that's an absolute luxury.
Absolutely it is.
Uh,
Absolutely it is.
and so I think that, to look at it, whether you reach 1,000,000, you reach 3, did it reach you yourself?
Mm. That's
And
such
at
a
the
good
end
point.
of the day, I think that's what's most important. And if there's a
Absolutely.
book that's really like on your heart, and as woo as that sounds, but
Mhm.
something that you're like, I got to get this out there. I have this story I want to just type, do it. And I'm still reading Big Magic by Elizabeth
Mhm.
Gilbert.
Ooh, yes.
And thank goodness for Angela Brown, who told me, she's like, you need to read the book. I read it every year, and I read just a chapter a night before
Mm.
bed. And I didn't
Nice.
realize that the chapters are literally like max 3 pages.
Nice.
So I go in every night and I'm reading it. And the last part I read was that she said that for her first 3 books, she held down a full-time job, sometimes multiple jobs. She couldn't afford to be a writer. And it was only after Eat, Pray, Love that
Mm.
she was like, maybe I don't need to work a full-time job. Maybe I've made it.
Maybe.
Maybe. But I think there's so many out there, myself included. I wrote a book while
Mhm.
working full time. And eh, let me tell you, those advances are not going to allow you to quit
Yeah.
your day job, people.
Yeah.
Um, not unless you are like Amy Griffin, you're selling out millions of books.
Right.
So, I don't think there's anything wrong with
Mhm.
writing it for the pure joy of
No.
writing it.
Absolutely. And that's definitely where I was heading with that, and you said it so beautifully. Do it for yourself. Why do you do what you do? And at the end of the day, as marketers, we're in the same position, right? Like, we do what we do because it's something that moves us, or we take on clients that move us, or that
Mhm.
we want their books out there. And at the end of the day, it has to be something that is fulfilling to us, as because otherwise you'd completely get drained. And it needs to be there needs to be a why behind it. And it does need to be about writing a story you want to read, a story that, like you said, you just said it so well, just does something for you and your heart. And it's something that you feel good about putting out into the world. And then at that point, who knows? It doesn't matter where it goes after that, because it's something you did for you. And that's so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. So good.
Maybe we just end this week there.
Okay. That sounds perfect.
So everybody go write the book that's on your heart and change your own life. And it might just trickle out to change other people's lives.
And then next week we should talk about imposter syndrome, unless you have a different topic.
No,
because
imposter syndrome's coming up next, everybody.
I think that goes hand in hand with putting your work out there. It's a tough subject.
All right. Stay tuned, everybody, next week.